PhD. And in my opinion, it just takes too long to get your registration transferred from an MPhil to a PhD. I think that doing a PhD should be a sign of distinction and not a sign of frustration. So I thought that, you know, if we spend a little time talking about the process, talking about the regulation, talking about preparing the document and how we close the loop on getting your registration completed, even after you've completed all of your documentation, then it might help all of us, both as faculty and as students, to get this process done more quickly. Okay, research is very challenging. I don't know about you, but for me, it's very challenging, and we shouldn't let administrative things cause us more challenge. So that's what I want to do this afternoon, just have a frank discussion about how we can improve this process. I have with me this afternoon my assistant registrar, Miss Georgia Bennett. I call her GB, so she's my GB, she's our GB, and she's going to tell you a little bit about the regulations that you need to keep in mind when you are thinking of upgrading your registration from an MPhil to a PhD. Then we're going to have Ricardo Anderson. Ricardo is my colleague from the Faculty of Science and Technology, and he's a lecturer and coordinator for the Applied Data Science MSc graduate program in FST, and he's going to give you some pointers about preparing your upgrade document. Later on, senior lecturer in the School of Education, Dr. Edwards Carr, is going to come, and she's going to tell you a little bit about the oral examination and what you should expect and how you should prepare for that. And among each of these, we'll have question and answers. So if you have some questions, just put them in the chat while we're going and we'll deal with them. Or you can open your mic and speak and we have a discussion. I prefer the discussion part. Then Miss Yolanda Tugwell, who is librarian and coordinator for the Mona Information Literacy Unit, will come in and tell you a few tips from the library to help improve your document and the whole process. Later on, we'll have a discussion with question and answers, and then I will come back at the end to close everything off and answer some of your questions. Okay, so what I want you to do this afternoon is just be very frank about what your challenges are, and let us help to guide you as to how we can help resolve some of those problems so your experience will be much better, both for academic staff and especially for students. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the introduction. For those of you who came in, I'm Marcia Roy, and I'm the Director for Graduate Studies and Research. We are going to have Miss Georgia Bennett, who is the Assistant Registrar for Graduate Studies and Research, now tell us a little bit about some of the regulations that you need to keep in mind while you are considering whether you want to upgrade from your MPhil to your PhD. GB?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for taking the time out to attend this workshop. Now, this presentation is guided by the regulations for graduate certificates, diplomas, and degrees, and the procedures outlined by the Board for Graduate Studies and Research for this purpose. Now, when you're thinking of upgrading your registration from MPhil to PhD, there are a number of conditions that must be satisfied before applying for an upgrade. First, you must be a registered student. Therefore, you must register for your thesis. You must register and successfully complete 6 credits of taught graduate courses. You must register and successfully complete 2 research seminars, and you must be within the time limit of your program. Now, in the regulations booklet, regulations 1.40 deals with the upgrading of registration from MPhil to PhD. And the regulation states that MPhil students may apply for upgrade to PhD after a period of 1 year full-time and 2 years if you're a part-time student. And we start counting your time in the program from the date of your initial registration. The regulation also says MPhil students must complete the upgrade of registration by the end of 3 years full-time or 5 years part-time.
Not heavy, I guess.
And when this happens, you're considered within your time limit in the program. The regulation goes further.
Sorry, GB. Kit Singh, can you please close your mic? Yes, Georgia, you can continue.
Right, the regulations goes further to say that MPhil students, when you intend to upgrade your registration, you must have the support of your supervisor and head of department, and you must have given evidence of having completed the qualifications necessary for writing a thesis for the PhD. So how do you apply for an upgrade? You're required to write a letter to the Assistant Registrar in the Office of Graduate Studies and Research. This letter must come through your supervisor and your head of department, formally seeking an upgrade of your registration. Once this letter is received, it is passed to the campus committee chair for review and approval. If you have met the requirements, your head of department will be asked to name an upgrade assessment committee. And this committee will consist of your supervisors, at least 2 independent assessors, and an independent chairman. The head of department will submit to the Office of Graduate Studies and Research the recommendations for upgrade assessment for the upgrade assessment committee for approval by the campus committee. And if approved, it allows you to proceed with the upgrade seminar. So when preparing your upgrade seminar presentation, it is important to note that at the seminar, you'll be expected to report on the work done and accomplishments to date under the MPhil registration. You'll be required to present a proposal to upgrade the work to the PhD beyond the MPhil level. And your MPhil proposal should be no more than 100 pages. This slide is just to highlight the basic components that must be included in your upgrade proposal. And they are an introduction, given the context of work, a literature review, a research question and hypothesis, a section on methodology, substantial piece of work towards the thesis objective, a plan and timetable for the remainder of the work, and a bibliography. And the precise material that must be included in your upgrade proposal varies across departments and discipline. Therefore, you must draft your proposal in consultation with your supervisor. After the upgrade seminar, the upgrade chair compiles a joint report of the outcome and secures signature of all assessors within 2 weeks, and submits the report to the assistant registrar. Once this report is received, it is passed to the campus committee chair, who reviews and submits the report to the Board for Graduate Studies and Research. The board considers and is satisfied, approves upgrade of your registration to PhD. Once approved, your registration will change to PhD in SAS in the semester in which approval is granted. And our office normally notify the student in writing of the change of their registration. Courses taken at the MPhil level will count towards a PhD degree, and 9 course credits and 3 research seminars are required at the PhD level. This slide is just to highlight the types of recommendations that are made by the Upgrade Assessment Committee. And they are pass, which means upgrade of registration to PhD, or adequate, which means subject to revision of the upgrade proposal to the satisfaction of the supervisor within 2 months, or inadequate, which means revise and resubmit the upgrade proposal for a second and final attempt at the upgrade seminar within 6 months, or fail, where the MPhil thesis to be completed within a specified time. And my final slide is just to highlight the fact that if you have exceeded your time limit in the program, you can still apply for an upgrade of your registration to PhD. But first, you must apply to the Board for Graduate Studies and Research for a waiver of Regulation 1.40. This request must have the support of your supervisor and your head of department before submission to the Office of Graduate Studies and Research. Once we are in receipt of this letter, it will be passed to the campus committee chair, who reviews and, if satisfied, pass the request to the board for consideration. If approved, if approved by the board, it allows you to proceed with the upgrade seminar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Georgia. We appreciate that. You kind of went a little bit too fast. You know, yeah, take it easy with us, okay? Because we have to absorb a lot, and this is important. The regulations are important. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to invite all 84 of you to just read through. It's just a few pages to make sure you understand what it is that you're in for when you decide you want to upgrade. All right. And remember that if you're full-time, you need to request your upgrade within 3 years of your registration. And if you're part-time, then it's 5 years. And if you're overtime, then you have to get a waiver, and we will ask the PVC for that. And so far we haven't had any no's. Okay. So we're just going to do a little bit of question and answer while we wait for Ricardo. Kim, can you tell me if Ricardo is online?
Yes, he's here.
Okay. Hey, Ricardo. Matthew, I see that you have your hand up with a burning question. Please go ahead.
My question was about the from the time that I submit the letter, the requesting that I have that I want to upgrade. So from the time my HOD submits the letter, is there a period? Do I do that once the upgrade document is ready, or do I do that? Does the upgrade document need to be handed in within a particular time after submitting the letter that I want to upgrade?
So once you make the request to your head of department, are you asking if once it's in graduate studies?
Well, once the letter has been sent from the head of department to graduate studies, is that the assumption that the upgrade document is ready to be examined, or is there a time period after which I can submit the document? So say like 2 months, 3 months, etc.
Right. So Matthew, once you submit to graduate studies, then it will go on your file, and then it will come to the director, and the director will write to your department to ask to nominate your assessment committee. So I would expect that at least within a month, you know, you should have your document ready. So once those assessors are approved, you're ready to go with your upgrade seminar. So you don't really want to request it until you're about 3/4 way there, and your supervisor have revised and say, yeah, this is a good plan. It's not approved yet, but it's almost there, because the approval of the assessors really doesn't take a very long time. Are you with me, Matthew? That's fine?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other question? Yeah, Tamara, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, good afternoon. I raised the question in the chat, but what if it is a case where you applied for a leave of absence and you return to the program? At what point in time would how does that affect your timing?
If you apply for leave of absence, then the time when you're on leave of absence doesn't count towards the time, right? So that time doesn't count. And I think you can get a maximum of 2 years of leave of absence.
2 consecutive years for leave of absence.
Yeah, the maximum time that you can get for leave of absence is 2 consecutive years. If you don't come back after 2 consecutive years, then you would have deemed to have withdrawn from the program, and you have to ask for readmission.
Okay,
Tamara,
thank you very
you're
much.
with me? Okay.
Yes.
All right. I think it was Mason.
Mason.
Yeah, you had your hand up.
Yes, good afternoon,
Good
all.
afternoon, sir.
All right, my letter would have been submitted in February. Yet to receive a response. I just,
Submitted to whom?
the supervisor did the submission.
Mason,
So
submitted to whom? To the Office of Graduate Studies and Research?
correct, with all the requirements as you laid out. But I'm yet to receive a response.
So you have requested, your department have requested an upgrade and you haven't had a response from Graduate Studies? Which,
May I respond to that one?
yes, this is Geraldine Hufong. She's one of our graduate reps. Yes, Jerry, go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Mason, you're from the MPhil Economic Development Policy Program.
Correct.
Confirmation was sent to your head of department dated April 6 about the upgrade.
Wow.
So it's best you speak to your department.
All right, Jerry.
Could you help with a direct email? I don't know why I wasn't told.
Samara Reynolds, she's a contact person from the department. I can reach out to her and ask her that she reach out to you.
So Geraldine, is it the upgrade assessment committee that was nominated? That's what you communicated with Sally says with?
Yes, the upgrade assessment committee.
Okay.
Okay, let me do that. Thank you much.
No
All
problem.
right. And Mr. Mason, if you're not satisfied, then you can reach out to us by email. Dawn. Wow,
Very
the hands are
pleasant. Good afternoon to everyone. I did my upgrade seminar from January, and from the feedback that I got, it was successful, but to date, I have not gotten anything formally from Graduate Studies. So I was just wondering how long that process would normally take.
Which department, Dawn?
Community Health and Psychiatry.
Community Health and Psychiatry. Jerry, can you ask Jody to pull that file and tell us before we're done what's happening with Dawn's upgrade?
No problem, bro.
Okay, all right, Dawn. So don't let us get away with it, okay? Mason, take down your hand. Dawn, take down your hand. No, we're serious. We're serious about this. I don't know which order it's coming, so I'm just gonna go by the order on my screen. Sandra.
Hi, afternoon, Prof. Thank you. Thank you very, very much for organizing this. This is timely and I appreciate it. I would like to find out what is a reasonable time to expect your department to pull together your assessors, your reviewers for your upgrade seminar. What's a reasonable time? Is there a reasonable time to expect them to pull together your assessors, the committee, to review your upgrade session?
So Dawn, let's say that you sat with your supervisor and you both agree that you're going to do the upgrade, and then you write to your head and your head also approve it. Then the next step would be to send it to Graduate Studies. If you are within time, I suggest that department send all of that information to us. If you are within time, within the 3 years full-time or 5 years part-time, then instead of you writing to us and us writing to the department and then the department writing to us, put all of it in the same letter and everybody sign so we can get this thing done. So I would suggest, let's say, what I've been encouraging everybody to do, you write to your head and or your supervisor and say that you want to get an upgrade, and your supervisor sign, your head sign, and they can attach a letter with the assessors at the same time. If you're overtime, then it's different because you have to get a waiver. So we can move fast if we just put our minds to it. Sandra, are you with me?
Yes, I'm hearing you. Okay.
Yes. So there shouldn't be any lead time, any layaway time between it. All the documentation can come in here at the same time.
Okay.
And it saves a lot of back and forth. I'm telling you, it really irritates me and it makes our work harder and it frustrates you too. So there doesn't need to be any lead time between. You should always be planning this upgrade, and it's not going to come as a surprise to anybody. So all the documentation can come in at the same time. You wish to upgrade with your supervisor and your head approval, and if the head feels like they can send the assessment committee at the same time. So when we write back, we will write back and say that the assessors have been approved and the department can go, the faculty can go ahead and organize the upgrade seminar. And I've done that and it works beautifully.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm sorry. We're gonna take these three and then we're done. Sandra?
Okay, thank you. I gather that might be Sandra too. That's me. So thanks
Sandra, why not?
again. That is correct, Dr. Roy. Thanks for the platform. I've had so many queries. Maybe I think I'm a little off the loop. So I am a MEd student. I had written to graduate study with an application for the PhD program. I was not aware that I had to maybe have dialogue around who a supervisor is, my supervisor would be, and all the other things I heard mentioned. I don't know where do I go from there, because the last time I did it was just an application. I was told to send in a proposal. And the next thing I also heard was something about a supervisor, and I'm not quite sure where in the process.
Sandra, you're currently in the MEd program.
I'm in the MS
program.
Okay, and that's
no,
the
I'm
PhD.
asking, you're in the MEd program and you submit a new application for admission to the PhD.
That is correct. That is correct. That's what was done.
Right. So this process would not impact you.
Okay.
But you have this process that I have outlined is for students who have been accepted in the MPhil.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So
okay,
you would have to wait on the outcome of your application for the PhD. They may ask that you start at the MPhil level and then upgrade.
Wow.
So if they ask that you start at the MPhil level and then upgrade, then this process is one that you will need to know.
All right. So when do I hear from them regarding that? Because I'm quite excited. I'd like to know for planning purposes, because I teach as well.
Yes.
And yeah, it's
as
real.
soon as you said you applied for PhD in the School of Education?
I did through the graduate studies.
So as soon as they process the application, because the process of the application really starts with the School of Education. They have to review your application. Once they have reviewed it, the director for graduate studies, she makes a final decision and then a notification sent to you regarding the outcome.
And it will be sent via email, etc.
Via email, yes.
Okay. Well,
the email that you put on your application, that's the email that it will be sent to.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Normally, how long does this take? Could you say?
I'm not in a position to say, since the process really starts with the department.
Okay, then. All right. Thank you so much.
Okay, Sandra, so I have a few questions for you before you leave, because remember, we're just educating everybody about how this works. You're doing an MEd, is that completed?
Yes, it was completed and awarded.
Awarded, and so you have an application for a PhD online?
That no, face-to-face or other mixed modality.
Sorry, you have an application for a PhD in the system right now?
Yes, I did. I do.
Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we get this all the time. Let me explain to you how it works. If you have a master's degree, then your master's degree must have at least, what is it, 25% of the credits must be for the research project. Otherwise, you can't register directly for a PhD. Okay? And we rarely have those programs. So many of our master's students start at the MPhil level and then they upgrade. So this is what happens. Unless your research project is more than 25% of the total credits for the program, you cannot go directly into a PhD. So Sandra, it might be that you're going to start at the MPhil and then upgrade in good time. You've done a research project already, so you know how this research thing works.
Right.
Okay, all right. Okay, I see the hands going. Elaine, make it quick so we can get Ricardo started.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again for this very, very timely seminar, workshop. Question is, what is the deadest line for the 5-year part-time, especially considering COVID? Thank you.
Yeah. So the deadline is 10 semesters. So that's how we count it. For the part-time, it's 10 semesters. So we're counting 10 semesters. So you know that the academic year starts in September and it ends in July. And the new academic year starts in August. So that's how we count it. Elaine, we're looking at 10 semesters part-time.
Thank you very much. Okay.
All right. Okay, I can't pronounce this first name, but the last one looked like Ajay.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm in a part-time program right now, third year for MPhil. I would like to know, is it mandatory that one has to stay till the 5th year before one can upgrade to a PhD? Like compulsory? Did you hear me? Hello?
Hello.
I'm sorry, I was trying to do multiple things at the same time. So please ask your question again.
Okay, I have. If it's compulsory that one has to stay till the 5th year in a part-time MPhil program before one can upgrade to PhD. Is it compulsory?
No.
It must happen within that time.
That's the maximum time.
That's the maximum time.
You can upgrade after a year.
Okay.
You can upgrade after a year, full-time or part-time, but that's the maximum time. Once you get over 5 years, then you need a waiver for part-time. And if you get over 3 years, then you need a waiver for full-time. And we are very, very happy to give you that waiver. I've been sending them to PVC, Aldra Henry Lee, fast and furious, and she approves them and send them back. So don't let that worry you. We want everybody to graduate with a PhD.
All right, thank you. Having second question, please. Having getting upgraded, what's the least and the maximum time one can use before one gets his or a PhD?
Once you've upgraded?
Yes.
The minimum time in which you can get a PhD is 3 years. So 3 years from your initial registration to submission. That's what the regulation says. But if you want to push the button, I will go and fight for you.
Okay. So you're saying, let me hear you clearly, please. After the initial MPhil registration, is that what you're saying?
No.
Or
so
after the upgrade?
No, I'm saying from your initial registration, the minimum time in which you can submit the PhD is 3 years. So the initial registration includes the registration of the MPhil. Once you start, the semesters start adding up. The last question from Delia. And then we'll go to Ricardo. Ricardo, get ready. Delia?
Hi, good afternoon.
Go ahead, please.
Yes, question. I'm one of those persons, I'm a full-time student. I think I started in 2019. However, COVID has hit, well, COVID came about. And my upgrade, I haven't started the process yet, so I'm wondering if I'll be one of those persons who would have to apply for a waiver.
So how long have you been in the program, Delia?
Since I registered for 2019, either 2019 or 2020. I think it's 2020.
No, you can't do that to me. You have to tell me when you first registered so I can count the semester.
I think it's 2019.
So if it's 2019 semester 1?
Yes.
So then 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, and we are in 2022, 2023. So that sounds like 8 semesters. Are you full-time or part-time?
Full-time.
You're full-time.
Yes.
So yeah, you would be overtime because you get 3 years. So just make the request for the waiver. Okay.
So I do that before I apply for the upgrade.
Yeah, you have to get the waiver before you apply for the upgrade. Okay. So once you're overtime, request the waiver. 1.41.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, what happens if I was to transfer to part-time?
Okay, so if you are full-time and you transfer to part-time, then after 2 years, you don't get any benefit.
Okay.
You don't get any benefit. So that's the thing. It counts similar
Okay.
full-time.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I just want to, Dawn, where are you? Dawn, we have your file. And I can see here where my assistant registrar approved your upgrade panel from December of 2022. So we're waiting to hear from the department concerning the report for your upgrade.
Which department? Department of Community Health?
Yeah, we sent to Dr. Ken James the approval of your assessment committee and the chair. Has the upgrade seminar happened yet?
Yes, it has happened already from January.
Okay, so where is the report?
Well, that I couldn't understand. I'm not so sure who is supposed to submit that report.
Okay, all right, I'm on it. By the time after Ricardo's presentation, I should hear from Dr. James. He's my good friend.
Okay.
I'm sorry we can't take any more questions. We'll take them later. Hey, Ricardo, please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. Hello, everybody, and thanks for having me. So I was asked to talk a little bit about writing up for your MPhil to PhD upgrade. And I'm not going by the regulations. I'm just going to talk a little bit through some of the practical things that I would recommend. I know that we are from many different disciplines, so my perspective is a little bit biased to current applied sciences, science and technology, as it's now called. However, I hope that many of the things I will speak to will be transferable to your discipline, and definitely I'll invite your questions or feedback at the end. All right. So I take note or time to note here that when it's time to present your work, it's important that you recognize it's an opportunity to do a little bit of marketing from the perspective of promotions, as some would correct me and say. And the perspective here is that you must believe in the work that you're doing, of course, under the guidance of your supervisor. You have to believe in the work that you're doing and the value of it. And that's the first hurdle I would say you need to ensure that you cross, because otherwise it's going to be difficult for you to convince somebody else that the work you're doing is of value. So importantly, you have to recognize the value of your work and ground that into the domain and the work that has been done in the domain through some of the things that you would have to do in like your first semester, first year. Because the truth is, if you're unable to demonstrate or articulate the value of your work, it's not going to be very easy to convince others, right? So others might not see it readily, so you have to show them. And your upgrade is a good opportunity to convince others, and primarily the examiners that have been appointed, that your work so far is good work and that it is worth you continuing such that you can be awarded the degree, your PhD degree, at the end of what you have put forward. Now, let's talk a little bit about the purpose of the written document. And again, I'm not using the regulations, but primarily, you want to provide a detailed account of the study that you're doing to the examiners so that they can assess the quality of the work, right? And so you write as if you're writing your thesis, your final thesis, except that there are some things that are not yet done. You want to demonstrate the theoretical and practical contributions of your study so far and say, here are the things that I will be doing to complete this study. And when you identify those extensions, it's important to note that they must meet the criteria for the award of the PhD. So I say you should have two prerequisites primarily. You must have some results or accomplishments that could reasonably be assessed as enough for the award of an MPhil, right? So consider that the work that you are reporting on, taken aside and written up, you could get the award of the MPhil degree for that work so far. So that's a very good step or test that you can do, because if you haven't gotten to a stage where that work is enough, then maybe you're not quite ready for the upgrade, because you have to demonstrate value, demonstrate the worth of the work, demonstrate a contribution on the way, and then say, here are the additional things that I'm going to be doing to complete this. And so equally important, you have to now identify what are the other things that you would need to do to close the loop, right? So in closing the loop, I'm speaking to what are those additional things you're going to add to this study in order to finish the PhD. And those must be clearly articulated. Now, I think when you are vying for a successful upgrade, you should be very clear on what you have done and what is left to be done. And sometimes in writing, it gives you the opportunity to better articulate and solidify for your own self the things that are to be done. So that's also useful as part of the process. Now, I like to talk about what you need to do to prepare to write, but I will be the first to tell you that in my own experience, writing is best done as you go, right? I think some people may work better, although in writing at the last, after they have collated everything and captured everything and they have all their things all over the place. But for me, I definitely benefited significantly when I went through this process, from starting to write on day one. So all the ideas I had, all the things I came upon, all the experiments I did, I started to write on day one. And what I also did, I engaged a reference manager that I could collect all my papers, summarize them, and have them integrated into my writing tool so that it is easy for me to actually do my bibliography or list of references. Now, in preparing to write also, it must be noted that your thesis is not a report of chronological activities, right? So the sequence should be logical and not necessarily time ordered. So you're not saying on day one I did this, day two I did that, unless it is important for your methodology, right? Now, the thesis itself must be coherent and organized in a way that is appropriate for the discipline and that serves the reader best, so that they can understand the context of your work properly and be able to see how the study moves from methodology to results and then implications, for example. So if you take my advice and you start to write early, when you get to the stage of actually doing the document, it's more about organizing and adding additional things to what you already have as a working document and making it more coherent in terms of its presentation. And then you explore opportunities to use illustrations and to insert the results and so on at that point. So this is your preparation for writing. Now, once you have set out what you need to complete the writing process, because remember, I'm saying you're starting incrementally from day one. You're writing down stuff, right? You're doing your literature search, and as you do your literature search, you can do your summary, make notes, add your citation to your reference manager, so you have a growing and expanding set of related work, so that when you're ready, you organize that and synthesize that for your literature review or your related background, depending on the discipline. All right. Now, you're ready to write. All right. One of the first things, and this is the part that is marketing predominantly, is motivating the study. Why is it necessary for you to be doing this work in the first place? Right? Who cares? What does it matter? What will be impacted? Where are the gaps? What's the problem? What's the problem space? What are your research questions, hypotheses, right? And having identified a background and stated this, you need to now discuss your intentions. What is it that your study is supposed to accomplish? And remember now, if you didn't start writing day one, or if you started writing day one, it matters not. You are now preparing the document that you're going to send for examination. So now, if your intentions were one thing on day one and they're another thing on day two, unless that matters, you don't necessarily need to say, I changed my mind. What the intentions are now that you're here, what were the intentions, and you fix that in a way that it suits what you have accomplished. So what is it your study was supposed to accomplish? And so now your document is going to now, in the beginning, indicate what it is that you intended to accomplish, so that the examiner reading your document is clear on what they should be looking for in the rest of your document. And that's very important. And then at the end, you can then rehash what you said you wanted to accomplish. Identify what is it you have accomplished so far, and then of that, what is left to be done, because you already stated it in your introduction, right? What is left to be done in order to finish the PhD, right? So it is discussing your intentions, what you're supposed to accomplish, or how will you go about answering the questions or testing the hypotheses that you've identified or set out for your study. Of course, it's important to note that you have to review relevant works. And, as a researcher, if you are unaware of what has been done in the domain or in the discipline that you're conducting your study, then you might end up repeating work that's already done rather than adding value to the domain. So you have to have evidence of comprehensive coverage of the subject domain and more, right? And of course, when I say and more, depending on what you're focused on in your study, sometimes the inspiration and the motivation and the similarities exist in other domains, and you're attempting to take that, right? So I'll tell you, in my discipline, computing, a lot of times we are motivated by things that occur in the natural environment, and we try to model those into processes, right? For example, so you cover the literature that is necessary and more. Now, importantly, as you cover this literature and as you synthesize, you need to identify, and I think this is always a useful approach in not just listing your related works and summarizing your related works, right? Or identifying related content, but also insert as part of that, what are the things that are related to that work that impacts your work, and what gaps occur, or what it is that you're going to build on in relation to those items that you're reviewing. And that also solidifies that you are integrating into the discipline, you are adding to, and you're actually filling a gap which is necessary. So that's the start of your writing up. So you have an introduction and your review of your literature. Now, when you think about the next things that you need to write, it's really about what you have done and how you did it. And maybe I should say it the other way, how you plan to do it and what you eventually did. Now, it was mentioned earlier by the first presenter, Georgia, I believe, about your methodology. So if your study is not grounded in the appropriate methodology, then your results or findings are going to be questioned. You must spend the time talking through your methodologies, right? Your work rests on whatever methodology is acceptable in your discipline and how that was applied, because next is your results or your findings, and those are not valid if your methodologies are suspect. So spend a lot of time on that. Explain what you have accomplished, right? So your methodology is how, and then your results and your findings has to do with what has come out of the how you did it. It's very, very important to note that this is where now you have to make sure you articulate what you have accomplished and you speak to what your contributions are. Now, contributions can be theoretical and practical. The PhD typically requires theoretical contributions in most disciplines, but that standard differs across disciplines. But you have to make a case for the work that you have done being good work, but it needs more. I've accomplished these things. These are the implications of what I've accomplished. And these are the other things that I would like to do, and this is how I will do it. So you have to make the case that what you have done so far is good work, but needs more. And you have to now speak to the contribution of the work so far and how much more it can do if you were given the green light to go ahead with what is planned for completion. All right? So you have to ensure you specify the theoretical and practical implications of the study, and you ground that also in the domain literature that you would have reviewed. Now, you need to justify the elements that could improve the contribution, show the roadmap to completing the identified additional parts of the study, say what will the impact of the full study be, but is not possible now. So in some cases, you might select 2 out of 3 things that you would have done, and the third thing depends on one of those 2 that you have done already. And the third thing is what you intend to do to finish. But you speak to the first 2 independently to say, hey, this is what I've done. And if I add this to it, then this is what the result is supposed to be. All right. Very, very important. Give a timeline to completion. So a number of questions have been asked about completion. And I tend to suggest that when you are at the stage for an upgrade, you should be very close to the finish line. Now, that might mean different things, because then if you are doing certain experiments or certain data collection activities, the end might be closer or further depending on your discipline. But the point is, at the upgrade stage, you should see what the finish line is supposed to be. You should have a sense of what it is that is left to be done. So you should be very clear, and writing actually helps you, because your MPhil thesis more or less is 2/3 of what your PhD thesis is supposed to be. Now, the caveat is, assuming that it's accepted and the examiners don't recommend a total overall, and that also is discipline specific. But when you work with your supervisor and you've identified what it is that is left to do, you need to now break down over time, another year or 2 years or 6 months, if you like, what it is you're going to do to complete. That's very important because the examiners want to see that. All right. So some other tips for graduate writing. Well, I spoke about, talking about your results and the implications. That would cover your final chapters in that document. And I think the page limit was given earlier. All right. So I have one or two other tips that I would give. I mean, depending on the stage you are in your graduate program. As I started off, I suggested that you write continuously, and I'll continue to suggest that. Write all your thoughts, your results, your work in progress in a way that allows easy collation. And for some people, it might mean a single document. For others, it might mean multiple documents over time. And you know where they all are, and you have version management, so you know which version and so on. I always also suggest adopt a documentation system. And I'll tell this story, right, of when I brought my thesis to the library. I brought it one afternoon, I believe, at about 3 p.m. for a preliminary review. And I sat with the librarian for them to go through and, give me an idea of what it is before I, submitted it for them to do the formal review. And I sat with the librarian and, I got an understanding of what I needed to do. So that consultation is important. Not as important at this stage, but it's important that you start doing these things so that later on down you don't have significant challenge. So having submitted, and I waited on the librarian, and I went back there to pick up the thesis with the certification of the library to carry to graduate studies. I was told that the referencing type used, I think it was Chicago 16 or 15 at the time, had changed about a month ago. And so the library now is accepting the newer version. Let's say it's, Chicago 16. And I took the thesis, went back to my office at the time, and in less than an hour, I brought back the copy with all of the references updated. It only took long because of the commute. It took me less than 5 minutes to just go into my document, change the reference style, and it updated everything. And it was now correct. And that's because I use document management system called LaTeX, right? And that was very, very useful for me. I don't have to worry about pagination, headings, page numbering are automatically inserted. I can set the rules and so on. And if you find that it works for you to use, Office or whichever tool, it's very important that you recognize that these things are very, very important to what you're doing, because it will take up a lot of time at the end. And so you have to spend a lot of effort fixing all of that if you don't do it incrementally, so that by the end, you are closer to what it's supposed to be. Now, if you use a documentation tool, you eliminate a whole host of those problems of which thing is on which page, your table of contents, your references, your index, if you need one, all of these things. So pay attention to the requirements of the library. Your upgrade document doesn't have to be passed by the library, but it's a good idea to have them look at it, because if you're close to finishing, you want to make sure that that document is 2/3 the way or more to the point of your completion. The other thing I also suggest is sync your work in progress to a secure cloud service. there are many of us who have suffered from a laptop going bad and losing work that you have stayed up with for many nights and many days. And it's not worth it. That's free these days and cheap in cases where it's not free. Plan your activities, again, with deadlines, even with your supervisors. I enjoyed very good relationship with my supervisors over the years, to the point where I could set timelines that included them, so that they have a sense of when I want to get things done. And I established that, if there is a suggestion otherwise, then fine. But you have to take these things in your hands. It's your work and it's your path that you have to chart. You have to do work anyway, so it's good to have some guide as to when you want to finish. And the other thing is publish if you're allowed. Because by the time you get to upgrade and you can list publications, it removes some of the questions about the contribution of your work when the supervisors, when the examiners are looking at your work. Because if you have peer-reviewed publications, at least one, right, then at least you would have justified the quality and the need for your work, because there has been no an external independent review of what you're doing. And that should add value. I think that's my time. Thank you. Open to questions.
Thank you very much, Ricardo. I agree with you. Remember that the PhD upgrade document is a roadmap to the PhD, and the better, clearer roadmap we give you, then the more quickly it will get done. We'll take a few questions quickly before Dr. Carr, Edwards Carr, please get ready. Well, Ricardo, you did so well. Everybody's stunned. Everybody's stunned. And ladies and gentlemen, Ricardo is from the Department of Computing in the Faculty of Science and Technology. So he has computer skills beyond most of us here. So that's why he can get his references done in 5 minutes. It would take me 5 days. All right.
I have offered, and I will continue to offer.
Right.
Some of these conferences that I write for will provide a template in some of these documentation tools. It might be something we can ask the library to consider, because it would help many of our students.
Okay. I would suggest if you have any concerns, you can reach out to Ricardo. Florette, I see you have your hand up. Delia, I'm assuming that you had your hand up from before. If you could just go ahead, Florette.
Professor, I just wanted to know the name of the document management tool. That
LaTeX, LaTeX.
All right, thank you so much.
Tamara, close your mic if you're not going to be asking any question.
I think I saw a question in the chat about 2/3 of the PhD thesis. Yeah, so my thought on the 2/3 of the PhD thesis was just a suggestion that you want to be substantially close to finishing your PhD at the point where you are doing your MPhil. And what substantially close means really is that you have done most of the work already. And if not most of the work, well, most of the work, yes, because more than 50%, I would suggest. And you are so advanced in the work that you're clear on what is left to do. And it's harder to be clear on what is left to do if you aren't a substantial way to the finish. Because the most important, well, I don't say the most important, but very important to the examiners is, what is it that is left to do? Because they are assessing based on what you say. Would that make a PhD? Would I award, if you do what you say you are going to do, would I award that a PhD? Right? And they are making that assessment because essentially they are saying to you that, yes, I look at, if you pass, they're saying to you, say, yes, what you have has the potential to be awarded a PhD. So if you can't tell them what is left to do, then they can't make that assessment fairly.
All right, I don't see any other questions. Thank you very much, Ricardo. Are you going to stay with us until the end in case other questions pop up? And of
I'll
course,
hang around for a little longer,
yeah,
yes.
and you can join the conversation in the chat.
Yes. Thank you
Sorry,
all. Thank you.
email address for Mr. Anderson.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Could we get an email address for him?
Yes, I can drop it in the chat.
Yeah, he'll drop it in the chat. Remember, he's a techie guy. Dr. Edwards Carr, are you ready?
Yes, I'm here.
Excellent, wonderful, all yours.
Okay. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank Ricardo because he has made my job so much easier in the sense that some of the things I wanted to raise, particularly the last point he mentioned, he spoke to about the MPhil being 2/3 of the PhD, and that is usually my goal with my students, in that I want them to get to that point. The goal is to get to that point where they are 2/3 or a little bit more in terms of the work that they have to present. Sometimes people find that difficult, why do you want me to do so much? But it's the point that he made. It's the fact that at that point, if you get to that point, you are a lot more at ease with talking about your work. You're a lot more at ease with talking about questions that will come up, why use this theory and not that theory? Why did you take this particular methodological route? And so once you get to that point, you'd have already explored those things and be very comfortable in your skin, be very comfortable in your ownership of the work. And we have to remember that the point of the oral examination is to provide assurance, to the examiners that I am ready, I have done the work, I have done robust research, this is PhD caliber work, and that this oral examination mimics or is a dress rehearsal for the actual PhD viva. And so it's important to see it in its right standing in terms of, am I still here? Hello?
I'm still
yes,
here.
you're still here.
Yes, we're hearing you. We're hearing you.
Okay. Right. So it's very important that you understand what the oral is for. And a lot of students want to get to this oral with a lot of urgency, and they want to do it right now. But it's important that you do it not right now, but when you're ready. It's important that it is when you're ready, when your mindset is ready, when you have a very clear understanding of what the work is, and when you are pretty much confident about the study, you own the study. You don't need a supervisor to lean on to explain anything to you. You can make your way in and out of the study. Any question you're asked, you can draw on something that will answer that questions, and because the questions will come, you would have chosen an examination, or rather an examination panel would have been chosen that is they're knowledgeable of the field of research that you're in, and knowledgeable about the substantive issues that you are considering in the study. And so really and truly, part of the confidence is being able to have a conversation with them about your direction, the direction you've taken, and then the resources that you can use and have access to. So you want to be able to engage them, to direct you, to guide you as you go on further. And for me, as I said, that 2/3 question is an important question, because I usually tell my students, you have no more than 10 months to finish this after you've done the upgrade. And that's not to scare them or anything, but just to give them a sense of where you need to be Where do you need to be at this point in time? So it's important to be prepared to know your own work. And I usually say for the oral exam, in fact, I usually do it, we do a run through, a dress rehearsal with critical partners who can act as or pretend to be examiners and ask questions. Difficult questions is important, even along the process of doing a PhD, to have those critical partners who ask you the hard questions. Don't be afraid of difficult questions or questions that floor you. Just be prepared to say, if you don't know, at this point, I haven't considered that issue. I might look into it and come back to you. You know, but the critical partners will help you to get to the Viva. Just some points to help you in terms of framing the sorts of questions. So that's one of the things I like to do. I have a set of questions that I ask my students to be able to answer those questions in preparing for this Viva. So first of all, what is the substantive issue that you're dealing with? What is the mischief that you're aiming to solve in the study? What are you addressing? And so you have to be able to articulate. I usually say, you have to be able to articulate this issue within a single sentence. For me, that's a signal that you are ready. You need to be able to answer questions about the opportunities that your study creates for opportunities now, in terms of the contribution that what is opened up by your study. What are the gaps in knowledge that the study fill, and what are the distinguishing features of your study? Those are things you want to be clear about in your head, even write them on paper before in a script. I usually have my students prepare a script of the presentation. So they have their PowerPoint or whatever form they're presenting in, but they have a script. So that script sort of helps them, and it's these questions that are raised about how they will work through the presentation. And don't set up yourself to try and do an hour presentation, right? The guidelines I give about 30 minutes. So I don't go with 50 or 75 slides. You know, you want to make sure you know how much time you're taking on each slide. The lit review, be very clear. This is somewhere where a lot of questions come up. And one of the questions I've seen coming up recently is the issue of references. So two things, Ricardo mentioned it. The first one is that UWI offers EndNote to all of us, right? Microsoft Word as a built-in reference manager. I see people still trying to manually manage their references. EndNote is a fantastic product. I have been using these reference managers from the days when we had to write MS-DOS. It was an MS-DOS framework, Papyrus. So, and it helps a lot in terms of formatting the references and identifying where you might have errors in the format of your references. Another critical issue that keep coming up with reference is the predatory references. Is it something you need to continuously review the reference part of your work to make sure that the references you're citing don't fall in that category? But what's important in this literature review, again, have 3 or 4 points that are key points in the literature review, key insight points that are actually connected to positioning the study within the field in terms of the research questions and the hypothesis. You want to make sure that the panel can see the connection between the two, how these questions that you have here are raised from this literature review. Your methodology, and thank you, Ricardo, I went through a lot on that. Importantly for us in education and maybe even in social sciences, the theoretical framework of your methodology, you need to be able to speak to that. What is being studied, what is being measured, and how theory defines those variables. That's important to connect to the methods that you've actually used. I encourage my students a lot to use visual methods here to map it out, show how the connection between those the theoretical constructs and the methods that you use, but also to map out a methodology, especially where if you're doing different stages, if you have different layers in the studies. I encourage the use of visual methods here to help people to be able to see immediately what it is that you're doing. And the results now, this is where the 2/3 come in, because this is where you are providing an assurance again to the examiners that I actually know what I'm doing. And this is what has come out of what I've actually done. And it gives a sense, a true sense, that the study is viable, that you can actually do this work, that you have done it, that you are more than capable of undertaking independent research. And that's usually what I look for. What are the results and what are they saying? What are those preliminary findings? What are they saying? And what does it really mean? It's these that you begin to use to go back to the beginning, where we talk about, you know, what's the significance of this study really? What does it mean? Where is its place in the field? Right? So the results are very, very important, and you want to be able to, even from the very beginning, to assure the examiners that you are well motivated to complete the study. The next steps are important in terms of where am I going with theory and where am I going with the research itself. How am I going to move forward? What's my work plan? I use work plans with my students. I prefer to use a work plan. And some people don't like these things, but what the work plan do is set out a timetable for how you're going to get things done. Ricardo spoke to that. And it's very important, even for yourself personally, to have these work plans. Okay, what do I need to do and how do I need to get it done? That's how you end up completing your thesis within time, if you are able to maintain the time frame that you've set out, right? An important thing to make sure that Ricardo spoke to it, is the relationship with your supervisor. Start the conversation about when the upgrade is going to be, how you want to present in that upgrade, and make sure that you can work this out to be sure that where you have gone with it is where it needs to go. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Edwards-Carr. Let's see, we can take a few questions. So if you have any questions, please just raise your hand and we'll take a few while Yolanda gets ready. Any questions about the oral exam? Boy, everybody's off the chart this evening. That's nice. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dion. That's my mother's name too.
Ah. Yeah.
Celia, I see you have your mic open. Were you going to say something?
In terms of the actual presentation, and you speak about having the paper being 2/3 finished. Just for me, for my mind, the actual presentation that you present at the oral, it's just a synopsis of your paper, correct?
It's a comprehensive summary, if there's ever such a term, of your study. Okay. My thing with my students is the three things that really matter: a proper literature review, coherent methodology, the results. I always ask my students to don't come to me for an upgrade if we're not speaking about what the results are. The 2/3 is taking you up to those preliminary results. That's what 2/3 really mean. It means having those preliminary results. So it's important that you're not just going in to talk about, okay, this is what I plan to do and this is what I think will happen. No, this is what I did, and this is the outcome. This is a set of preliminary outcomes. This is what I think it means. That for me is a candidate, is a person who has moved from being a student, an MPhil student, to a PhD candidate. That's where, for me, that's where the transition takes place. And I take my students there. If they're not there, for me, they're not ready for an oral examination, because you must be able to talk about what sorts of analysis you've undertaken and what is even the challenges. You know, if you're doing, especially if you're doing qualitative work, what are some of the challenges you experience in trying to interpret this? Put that on the table. Show people that you are competent in this area.
Okay, thank you. And I'm assuming that by that time you should have passed through ethics, correct?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay.
And I tell you something about ethics. We beat it a lot, but that ethics process actually provides you with a lot of robust experience in preparing your work for an upgrade, because you have to show them that this study is viable. And in doing that, it's the beginning of taking you on a path where you are developing the kind of study that maintains the standards, and that's what we have to protect.
Thank you.
Matthew, I see your hand. Matthew, your mic is closed.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I realized I had not shared screen. Very sorry, I can send the presentation.
All right, yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead, Matt.
My question was about, I don't know if maybe I missed it when you were talking, but is there, this graduate studies have like a specified time limit for upgrade presentation? And the second thing I wanted to know about was, I've been to one or two upgrade presentations, and there's usually a section of the upgrade where the candidate fields questions publicly from the panel, and then there's maybe another section where they maybe talk in private. Is that always the case, or is that just for particular types of research?
I think Dr. Roy's team can, Professor Roy's team can take that question in terms of structure. What I do know is that the Q&A from the panel is an important part of the examination. And then the structure you have described is one we use in education, where then the panel meets privately to discuss the outcomes of the presentation.
Yeah, Dion, that's correct, Matt. Once the oral presentation is finished, then you're going to be asked questions by the assessors until they are satisfied.
Yes.
And the assessors can open for questions from the audience. And you are not required to answer those. That's not part of the examination, but as a good citizen, you would want to answer those questions, and then the exam will close. Matt, that answers your question?
Yep. Just one other thing I was asking was that is there an absolute time limit for the PhD presentation? Yeah.
So the upgrade seminar is really the purview of the faculty. So faculties can decide, but you know, maybe 30, 45 minutes, but that is something that you should discuss with your supervisor and ask your supervisor to find out from the chair how much time you will have to do this presentation. As Dr. Edwards-Carr was saying, remember, you have to plan and prepare. So ask your supervisor to reach out to the chair of the upgrade seminar to find out exactly what the time is. The Office of Graduate Studies and Research does not prescribe any particular time limit on the presentation. That's from your faculty.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Anything else?
Just one thing, in terms of time, again, I would just say to persons, don't plan to present for an hour. Go with 30 minutes and plan every part of the 30 minutes. Know what you're going to be doing at minute 10, 10 minutes in, you know that you're going to be at this particular slide and this is what you're going to be saying. So it helps to that helps to calm you as well and puts you in control.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Plan for 25 and go 30. Don't plan for 30 and go 45.
Right.
It makes you anxious. And you see how I'm keeping to my time? I'm watching everything because at 3:20, if we don't have any other questions, see, excellent. We are going to hear from Miss Yolanda Tugwell, who is librarian and coordinator of the Mona Information Literacy Unit. And she's going to give us tips from the library because the library is such an important component in this. And remember that the PhD upgrade document is going to be the building block for your final PhD thesis. So if you get that done right, then the rest of it will be easier. Yolanda, yeah, go ahead. We can see your slides.
Okay. Hi, good afternoon. It's actually Yolanda Tugwell. So I am
apology, Yolanda.
from the Mona Information Literacy Unit for the main library. So I'm with you this afternoon. Thanks for the invite. I was listening to Dr. Anderson and realized that maybe I didn't need to come because he spoke a bit about the library and some of the things that I wanted to highlight today. So let's see how quickly we can get through this.
Sorry, Yolanda. You know, sometimes when you hear it 3 or 4 times, that's when it's cement in your head. So please go ahead and make a presentation. We don't mind hearing it again.
Okay. All right, so as I said, I'm from the Mona Library, and you know, the Mona Library, I'm just giving you a little housekeeping here. You know, the Mona Library consists of 5 libraries. It means that whatever discipline you are, you can go to a library, whether the 4 on campus, which is the main library, which most people are familiar with. There's the Science and Engineering down by Science Library. There's Faculty of Law, and there's Faculty of Medicine. Those are on their particular campuses. So the medical one is by the hospital. And then we have the Western Jamaica campus, which is in St. James in Montego Bay. One of the things you want to note is that your ID takes you into all of those libraries, right? So if you need to visit a librarian at any point in time, librarians are at all the libraries, right? So you don't necessarily have to come to Mona Library, but the main library, sorry, but you do have librarians in all of the different libraries, right? So just to let you know that for the opening hours now, so our regular opening hours are 8:30 to 10 Monday to Friday, and Saturdays 9:30 to 5. So for the exam period up to May 12th, we're going to be going from 8:30 a.m. to 12 a.m. And then we have opened up the service of the overnight reading room by extending it and offering the reading room too, in terms of having space from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. during the week, and practically open all day Sunday into Monday morning. All right, so that's just for you to know. So the Mona Information Literacy Unit, called MPhil for short, is located in the main library of the UWI Mona campus. And we are responsible for coordinating and disseminating thesis to the librarians in all the UWI libraries for them to do the thesis consultation and thesis scrutiny review. Now we liaise with the Office of Graduate Studies and Research, read the thesis scrutiny aspect of it, and the campus librarian certificate of completion. Those sort of matters are what we deal with. In addition to that, we do facilitate information literacy sessions for the foundation English courses and other courses as requested. So if your graduate class wants to have us here, you can have us at your session dealing with things like the databases. And if you want to, the presenter before me spoke about you making sure that you're not using like predatory sources and so on. So say you wanted a presentation on Cabels. That's a database that we have that speaks to that sort of thing with identifying predatory journals and so on. So feel free to make sure to invite us to be a part of all of that. So the unit was established in 2001, and we coordinate all instruction and teaching, as we say. In addition to that, we collaborate with faculty, with the librarians, and other personnel at the university in order to do these training opportunities, right, in terms of information literacy. We want to empower students and faculty to locate academic resources efficiently and to acquire these research skills that are needed to avoid plagiarism and to generally improve the quality of their academic assignment, in your case, the thesis that you will present. We do have access to a number of databases which will help you throughout this journey. In addition to that, we want to let you know that we do have an online service that should operate between 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. I think it goes up to 10 p.m. during this exam period, which is Ask a Librarian, and that can actually be found on our library website. So one of the things in the UA thesis guide, it speaks to the role that the librarians play in thesis submission. And so it says the librarians of the campus libraries are available for advice on the technical requirements of the thesis, so the layout, the arrangement of works, etc. Right? And this is in the UA thesis guide 2015, page 3. You want to make sure that the thesis guide becomes your little Bible, right? In addition to that, you want to make sure that you have certain documents in place. So the thesis guide, of course, which is available on the Graduate Studies website. There's also, if you're doing a manuscript-based thesis, you want to acquaint yourselves with the UE guidelines for the preparation of manuscript-based thesis, which came out in October 2021. And you want to look at the most current version of the handbook for the citation style that you're using. The thesis guide does tell you which citation styles are used for your particular discipline. Although the guide was published in 2015, so for example, the Faculty of Social Sciences has added the Harvard and APA 7th edition as citation styles that are now being used. It wouldn't be in the 2015 version, so until a new version comes out, you still should know that that is now, those two styles can now be used if you're a social sciences student. Then we have the thesis consultation, the form that we ask that you submit when you're submitting your thesis to us for review. So you might have heard persons before speaking about the thesis consultation. So we do offer an informal service where you can, prior to you submitting to Graduate Studies or to your department, you may opt to get this review done. So an email request will be sent to the unit and you're able to have a review done between 5 to 10 business days. That's the usual time. And another one could be done after you have defended your thesis. You usually ask someone to be done prior to you asking for the thesis certificate, right? The certificate of completion from the library. Now, we do have a checklist that we are going to be bringing on board pretty soon in terms of just highlighting some of the things that you need to make sure is done before you actually send it in for review, because we know that persons sometimes are not paying close attention to what the thesis guide says about minor things, right? So that will be coming on board shortly. And of course, there is a formal thesis scrutiny, which is requested by Graduate Studies. And that, of course, has a longer turnaround time. So it's usually given to a librarian who scrutinizes and makes sure the person does an individual report and they highlight the areas to be corrected, right? So what does thesis consultation and thesis scrutiny entail? We check the thesis for formatting issues as it relates to the thesis guide, as we said. In addition to that, we want to check to make sure that you're using the correct citation style for your discipline and that you're using the most recent version. Dr. Anderson spoke about that. You have to be using the most recent version of the citation style. All right. The thesis guide will supersede the citation style guide for issues such as the spacing, figures and tables, things like that that are addressed in the U thesis guide. Now, a lot of persons don't pay attention to this in the thesis guide, which is the thesis routing process. And that can be found on page 29 of the guide. And it speaks to you the process, what happens after you submit to the Office of Graduate Studies and Research, and then it coming to the library, going back to OGSR, and you coming back in order for you to be able to get the library, the thesis certificate, right? So we are an integral part of the process. And if it is you want to come by, as I said, any of the libraries, you could go and you could sit with a librarian at the reference desk. All of the libraries have a reference desk, and you could actually go through with a librarian, right? If they have enough time to spend with you. Other than that, as we said, you email the document, right? So the arrangement of work, simple things like this is for the traditional thesis, and you would have to do this even if you're doing the thesis by manuscript. You have to make sure about how your thesis is organized. And we still have persons sending in thesis that, you know, the references is on the second page and you're like, you didn't read the thesis guide at all, you know? So there are things that you need to be cognizant of the pagination as it relates to the preliminary pages of the thesis, as well as the use of like pagination in terms of the text of the thesis. So for the preliminary pages, you know, it's the lowercase Roman numerals that are used as opposed to the text of the thesis where the Arabic numerals or numbering system is used, right? Then you have your end pages as per your citation style guide, right? So whatever references or bibliography you have, you want to make sure that that is in place. In addition to that, another place that we find that persons make a lot of mistakes too is the title page, the first page, all right? So this page isn't numbered, it's supposed to be single spaced, and all of that is in the thesis guide. You want to make sure that you have simple words like by, you know, preceding your full name as it is on the record. You know, if you have a middle name, you would put your middle name there. And whatever you put on the title page in terms of your name, you would have to make sure that that is also on your abstract, the abstract page, right? Even here, sometimes persons, they have mistakes such as putting the faculty up here, or they put University of they put Mona on here. There's a place for all of that. So familiarize yourself with that, the title page and how it is to be set up, and the spacing in terms of you making sure that you have 2 inches to the left and you have 1 inch at the other places, the top, the bottom, the right-hand side, right? And that it should continue throughout your whole thesis. So if you have images there, if you have your figures and your tables and so on, you still have to make sure that you're keeping in line with what the spacing that is required and the margins in terms of the margin spacing that should be there, right? So that's important for you to note. I spoke about the abstract too. It's important to note that your headings are to be in bold capital letters, and the thesis guide speaks about that. The page numbering is going to be the lowercase Roman numerals because this is a preliminary page, right? And you want to, and this too is the first page that you have pagination on. You want to make sure that your abstract is one paragraph and that it doesn't have things like references in it, all right? Citations are not supposed to be in your abstract. 300 words maximum, your keywords, making sure that even the punctuation marks that you have. So, you know, after the word keywords, you make sure that you have the colon there, and then you have the semicolon between all your keywords and stuff, and a full stop at the end, simple things like that. All right, so you want to make sure that you look at your thesis guide and make sure that those things are in place. Even as it relates to tables and figures, so the thesis guide advises that your tables should be placed, the table titles should be at the top, and whereas your figures and illustrations, those should be at the bottom. It should be below the figures and illustrations and aligned to the left, right? If it is an original source, of course, you're not going to write anything because that's your work, right? And simple things like, you know, the thesis guide suggests that you have like a full stop after the word figure 1, or you choose to have a colon, right? It's up to you. Whichever one you use, you would make sure that you consistently use it throughout the document, right? And the end pages. So fundamental rule of good scholarship is that the basic research is reliable, accurate, and that credit is given to all sources used in the preparation of the work, which means that you must have references, you must cite everything, that all the sources that you have used. If you have things like personal communication, you make sure that that is in the text, but it's not in your bibliography or your references. You want to make sure that, again, that you are using the style manual that is recommended for your particular faculty or department, right? Very important that you do that. And as I said before, this can be found in the UE thesis guide also. The end pages, the appendices, remember that your appendices should not exceed 20% of the thesis, right? Very important that you remember that. And that when you name them, once you have over 2, you're going to say appendix A, B, C. It's not 1, 2, or 3. It is letters that you use for that, right? And that's that there. So we want to make sure that you're cognizant of the fact that, you know, dissertations and theses are a critical component of academic library research collections. And the physical thesis that we have here at UE and at Mona in particular, those are housed in the West Indies and Special Collections in the main library. Now, their hours are 8:30 to 4:30, Monday to Friday. And on a Saturday, I think they'll go from 9:30 to 5 p.m. Very important that you remember those hours because they're not always open. Other parts of the library may be open until 10, but they're not, right? Electronic copies of the UE thesis are sometimes available in UE Space, and you can access UE Space through the library's homepage too. And remember that we also have access to ProQuest Dissertations and Thesis Global, which is a database that has thesis and dissertations that are done globally, right? So you do have that option too. And once you're a student and you go onto UWeLink, you will have access to these databases. So the page as it relates to UE Space, you're able to actually select the campus that you want to look to see if there are any the theses that were done. But a lot of them in UE Space, it's mostly the abstracts that are there. They've just started putting some of the full text there. So be cognizant of that. All right, so one of the things is you want to make sure that you're not plagiarizing, right? So once it is that you have used people's work, it means that they must be acknowledged. It's not your work. It's a form of theft, right? So you're stealing. So you have to make sure that you do that. And I won't stay long on that because throughout the course of the semesters, we usually have sessions on plagiarism, and we invite you to come to those, or if your department wants something like that, you can recommend to your lecturer to have that done, you know, for a particular session to be done just for your group. So we want you to think about that. All right. So it says use position on plagiarism. It is presenting someone else's work as if it were your own, whether you mean to or not. And when you're in doubt, we tell you to make sure that you cite it, right? And you can go and look at that in your own time. You want to make sure that, I mean, UWI has its own policies as it relates to academic integrity. And at the postgraduate level, you have the postgraduate coursework accountability statement that some of you sign to when you're doing your assignments, right? And there are other things there that you can, there's a whole university statement here that can be accessed online, the regulations as it relates to plagiarism. And note that these things you can be you can either be suspended or expelled. All right, so you want to make sure that you are on board with that. So plagiarism.org recommends 4 easy tips for you to avoid plagiarism. Understand what is expected of you, collect credible sources, and we recommend that you use the databases that are available to you through UWI Link. Use your UWI ID and password that you use on ORVLE and SAS to access these sources that are credible, that the university pays a lot of US dollars for, right? You want to make sure that you spend some time getting your sources from there, right? You want to make sure that you make notes, you plan and you structure efficiently. And when you're in doubt, cite, always cite. And on UWI Link, sometimes you're able to actually save it. If you're signed into UWI Link, you can actually save the things that you have there, as well as you're given the, you can, in UWI Link, you're able to actually have access to EndNotes 20, right? And you're able to, Dr. Anderson spoke about you keeping track of your references. So we do have access through EndNote 20 through that medium. And there's some websites there. And you want to make sure that the important thing is that you keep abreast of what is happening with your bibliographic information. You have to make sure that you choose to use something, use a citation management tool. It may not be EndNote, you might opt to use something else, but note that EndNote is free to you. The citation styles, some of them are available through the library. For example, Chicago, we have electronic access to that one. Others, you may have to use the physical citation styles available through UWI Link, right? In addition to that, you want to make sure that some of the databases that we use, like ProQuest and EBSCO, you're able to actually export. If you have like an EndNote library in place already, you can export the citation into your EndNote library. But note that even though you may have a bibliographic software in place, you must make sure that it is your responsibility to check the references, right? To make sure that although you're using the citation management software, that it is done correctly, right? So sometimes we rely heavily on that. And then in the end, you realize that, hey, something or the other wasn't done, you know? So you want to make sure that you do that. So if you want to contact us, these are some ways to contact us. We do have a portal on ORVLE called UWI-ML1. You can visit it. There are videos there about some of the databases. We are on social media, Instagram, Facebook. We're also on YouTube. I think it's Mona Library on YouTube. In addition to that, we have the 3-minute thesis. Some of you may be eligible for that if you pass your upgrade, you know, to the PhD. So this is a wonderful way of you getting some practice before you actually submit, and so that you're able to do that elevator speech in like 3 minutes. For persons, you know, you're presenting it in regular jargon, persons understand your work, and for you too to get some exposure in terms of presenting your work. So you want to look at that, and that is on our webpage. More information on that is on our webpage. So I invite questions at this time.
Thank you very much, Yolanda. That was very thorough. So if there are any questions, you can just raise your hand and we'll acknowledge you. And at this point, oh my gosh, girl, you were right on time. 3:45. This is brilliant. We'll take any questions for any of the speakers, or if you have any questions for me or for any of our graduate reps. I see that the chat has been very active. So does anybody have any burning question for any of the speakers? I thought they all did a thorough job. Everybody is happy. This is wonderful.
Sorry, hello, I can't find my raise hand.
That's all right, Delia, go ahead.
In terms of the references that have been placed in the chat, in the Zoom link, how will be, well, I'm not too sure if we'll be able to access it after the thing is closed. I see a number of references put in the chat. There's one and two that I've copied, but I may have missed something before. For instance, like the first presentation, it wasn't opening up for me. So just in terms of having access to the information that was placed in the chat.
So the presentations and the recordings we will make available. If there is a particular link, then we can ask the speaker just to get that information to you. If you reach out to us at postgrad@uwimona.edu.jm, or we can put you in touch with the speaker.
Also, the regulations and the manual of procedures is on our website under the heading Forms and Documents. So you can download those two documents from there.
Thank you, GB. So we're here to help to make this process as seamless as possible. Because if we do that, then it also becomes easier for all of us. Erica, I see your hand is up. Erica, you have a question?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry. I was trying to find to unmute. Thank you. Thanks for a very good presentation, Ms. Togwell. I have one question. Sometimes it's challenging as a part-time student to come in after 5 o'clock, especially for some of those orientation sessions. So I was wondering if there are some orientation sessions that are scheduled on a Saturday.
So we have tried that. We have had sessions on Saturday, and sometimes people don't turn up. And we also facilitate sessions after 5.
Okay.
We had one recently, and it was for graduate students, and not a lot of persons turned up. They turned up for studies programs.
I'm sorry, where can we find the schedule?
We don't have a schedule, but we usually send out our things through Mona messaging or on our social media pages.
Okay, I'll check going forward. Thank you.
Yes, yes. Nice to hear you, Ms. Davis.
Thanks, Ms. Togwell.
And Yolanda, if you send it to us too, we can also send it to the graduate students by email, so they will have the information.
Thank you, Professor
When
Roy.
we get it to them, then you know the better.
Thank you
All
so much,
right.
Professor Roy.
Therese, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for this session. I'm really thoroughly enjoying it. I am in Barbados, so my colleague just asked about the orientation sessions at Mona, and you said there was some after work and on Saturdays, but for those of us who are not in Jamaica, do you have any orientation sessions online?
Most of our sessions are held using Zoom, so you can join. But the persons who are physically here, I should also indicate that when the library opens until 10 p.m. Monday to Friday, a librarian is available at the reference desk until 10 p.m. So you can speak with the librarian or ask to speak with the librarian or make an appointment to see a librarian. Librarians are scheduled at the different libraries. Well, from 5 to 10, it would be the main library now. Yeah, 4:30 to 10. But yes, we do have sessions, and the sessions have been primarily on Zoom. And as I said, you can self-enroll to UAML1 if you want to see some of the presentations that we have done. Some of them are there. And you can also go on our YouTube page, Mona Library. You should be able to find some things there also. But if you have particular questions, please feel free to email us. I'll put the emails and stuff that I had on my PowerPoint. I will just add them in the chat.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other question or concern that you might have? All right. Well, if you do, you can still reach out to us at postgrad@uwimona.edu.jm, and we can get you in touch with somebody that can help. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're coming to a close, and you realize based on our discussion here that there are multiple avenues of assistance for you. One of the challenges with our graduate students is sometimes they need help and they don't reach out in time until the situation gets really bad. And the longer you wait, sometimes the harder it is to solve. So you heard Ricardo, well, Georgia was speaking to you about the different regulations, and I would suggest that if you're planning an upgrade, then you should just read through. It's just a few pages, so you can educate yourself about the things that you need to know, and if you have any questions, then you can reach out to us. Then Ricardo would have told you about how to prepare your document, and you know, the work that you did for the PhD, and then the roadmap. The work that you did for the MPhil and the roadmap to the PhD. So, you know, Ricardo told you about how to walk the walk. And then Dion came in and she explained about the oral exam and the things you should be aware of. So if you're going to walk the walk, then you also have to talk the talk. And Yolanda came in and she told us about all the help that we can get at the library. It's very important for you to do this and to save your time some frustration in the end when you know you have to revise things. So you know, my grandmother always says, if you don't have time to do it properly, where are you going to find time to do it again? So if you do it properly the first time, get some advice, make sure you're doing the right thing. Your thesis guide must be your companion, then it will make things easier for all of us. I don't know, that is what we wanted to say to you. Thank you very much for joining us. I suspect that we're going to have a much easier process with our PhD upgrades in the future. If there is anybody who have any question that they want to share, then you can let us know. Otherwise, you can just reach out to us at postgrad@uwimona.edu.jm. There's also a wealth of information on our website. And once we get this recording edited and everything is sorted out, then we're also going to place those on our website, and the presentations will be there so you can consult them in the future. I don't know if any of the speakers have anything that they want to finish off before we end this meeting. Thank you very much, Ricardo and Dion and Yolanda and the team in graduate studies, Kim and her team. You saw Geraldine was there. Dawn, you see that I reach out to you, and Dr. Ken James has said that he's going to contact me tomorrow so we can get your issue resolved.
And I do appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, that's what we're here for, ladies and gentlemen. You have a problem, just reach out to us and we can get it solved, because the research is hard enough. The administration shouldn't be a problem. You're welcome, Dawn. All right, ladies and gentlemen, have a good afternoon. And thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Wonderful session. Thank you.
Thank you
All
so very
right.
much. Great
Thank you,
session.
Pauline.
Thank you. Most
Excellent, excellent session.
Excellent. Bye-bye. Take care, everybody.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you very much, Doc, Professor, and everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.